Welcome to the Breakthrough Advisor Podcast. In this podcast, we inspire advisors with ideas and pathways to break through barriers and build a thriving retirement income business. We will interview innovative technology developers, business leaders, and successful advisors, then help you organize and execute these ideas to move your business forward.
Hello, this is Jack Martin. I'm the virtual CMO here at InsureMark, and I want to welcome you to InsureMark's Breakthrough Advisor Podcast. This is where elite advisors come to level up their game in 2023 and beyond. Hey, Patrice, how you doing?
Jack, doing well. I do have my swag on, as you mentioned, because it's cold. It's cold here.
That's great. That's great. Hey, we're going to talk about customer experience today, folks. And customer experience is just a little bit different from customer service, but it's very similar. I mean, the customer service is wrapped up in the customer experience. But here's the here's the jumping off point. And Patrice, weigh in. So a couple of years ago, Schwab surveyed a lot of their consumers, their clients. And I can't believe this is true, but the majority of those people said they would rather go to the dentist and get their teeth drilled than meet with their financial advisor. Okay. And then the follow-up question was, they were twice as likely to reschedule their financial advisor appointment than they were to reschedule their car maintenance appointment. So there's some kind of major disconnect here between, we all know that folks need financial advice. Lord knows. I mean, people who are retiring, how do you recreate that paycheck? And, how do you manage long-term care expenses? And how do you, manage legacy and student debt? Don't get us started on that. How do you manage all those things without a financial advisor? So there's something in the way we're delivering the advisor experience. And I think the first thing, as we get into this conversation that we all need to recognize is, besides the importance of the customer experience, is that it's hugely personal. For instance, I for one, just relish the 5-star dining experience at French Laundry, okay? But I can tell you with 100% certainty that my 93-year-old U.S. Marine dad would not have the same joy from the 3.5-hour dining experience, okay? So it's extremely personal. What do you think?
I think not only is it personal, it's you don't want to bear your dirty laundry, and you don't want to be made to feel stupid. And I think a lot of people feel stupid when they go to see their financial advisor.
There's this emerging range of thought in the financial advising community about behavioral finance, okay? And one of the things we know is that shame and judgment are very powerful emotions. And if someone is coming to you with their shoebox of information about their financial life, the last thing they want to hear is, I'm sorry, it's, your score isn't high enough. You're not going to be able to buy the vineyard. You're not on track like the top 5% of my clients. So, I mean, that whole judgment and shame thing plays into it.
Yeah, but then it's they may come up with a question. Some of them don't talk in everyday English. They use acronyms. They use, off the top of my head, obviously I can't come up with one, but they will use acronyms. They will use phrases. And I'm sure people sit back and go, I don't know what you're talking about, but they're afraid to say, I don't know what you're talking about. They just go,
Yeah, it's so true. I mean, you would think folks who are talking about annuities would keep it pretty simple, but if I listen to advisors talking about annuities these days, they talk about the VIX, they talk about smart beta,
indexes.
They talk about benefit values, and they talk about all sorts of stuff that the average person doesn't understand. So and you're absolutely right.
Annuities to start with, people think, I thought they were good, but then I was told they were bad, and now they're good again, and I don't understand.
Yeah. I mean, so from a customer experience perspective, I think that those are some good road signs. Are you keeping it personal? Is it relevant to the people that you're talking to? And if your audience let's say your audience are airplane pilots. All right. Commercial airline pilots, great target market. It could be dentists, but each of them kind of have a language, have a mindset, have a set of problems. And so if your experience is relevant to them and you keep the jargon out, I think people are going to be more favorably inclined to cancel their car maintenance appointment instead of canceling their appointment with their advisor. What do you think?
What about the format? Do you think people are more open to virtual, or do they feel more comfortable in the office?
So again, that's really personal and it's really age related. It's interesting. Trying to remember who did the research. It came out earlier this month. Someone did and asked that very question, because there's a question about how often you should get together. There's a question about how the agenda, for your client review meeting is structured. There's a question about whether it should be virtual or in person. And what they found is that a lot of that is age specific. The Gen Z is much more inclined to say, yeah, I'm all in on a virtual thing, and the greatest generation, maybe not so much, so just to think of it in the extremes. So as you're thinking about your customer experience, there are lots of places along the customer journey to think about where that fits. We're working with a client now about what happens from first contact through onboarding, and we talk with our advisors. In fact, we just did a office hours last Friday where we talked about client onboarding and what does that look like. If you think of that as a 90-day period, what are the touch points? What are the things that you can do during that first 90-day period when someone becomes a client where they say, "Wow, you wouldn't believe what my financial advisor is doing for me."
But then you have to keep that up. If you do it once within that 90-day period, but you don't do it again for a year, are you going to turn them off?
Well, probably. The thing is, what is it that they want? I mean, once they get on board, do they want to talk to you every quarter? Do they want to talk to you twice a year? Do they want to talk to you once a year? And, with CRMs today, it's super easy to key that in and create a workflow, I think the more interesting area for financial advisors is what are you going to talk about with your clients?
Which was going to be my next question on agenda. You mentioned agendas. Should an agenda be laid out in front of the client, or should this be a seamless conversation?
Well, so here's the thing. Traditionally, the advisor created the agenda, and the agenda was designed to say, okay, so what's happened since the last time we met? Here's what's happened to your investments. And here's what you've added to your investments. Here's the changes we've made in your investment portfolios. What's happened in your life, what's changed in your family, what's changed in your financial circumstances, right? And so what we've learned is that really doesn't create super engaged clients. What's really more important is to get to, and there's this hierarchy, this customer hierarchy, kind of like Maslow's theory. Okay, so there's a similar way to look at that from a customer experience perspective, and what you're trying to do is get to the trust, get to the confidence, away from those foundational things like, are you keeping score? Am I in the right place? Kind of questions, and so. If you take that approach, if you start thinking about how do I engage my client in a conversation, about what's really important to them about money, so that I understand a little bit at a deeper level what's important to them. A friend of ours asks a really simple question at the beginning of these meetings. So, what brings you here today? Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's not just, well, I feel like I need a financial advisor. No, what brings you here today? What is it that caused you to, book the appointment, to hold the appointment, to show up? What is it that caused you to want to be here today? What's really got your attention? And that's a conversation that a lot of financial advisors don't have with their clients. We're more wrapped up in, here's the performance reporting. Here's the Monte Carlo simulation on how your retirement projections look like. We're more wrapped up in the analytics than what's really going on in this person's life. It's interesting when you start to pay attention to what the customer experience is, when you start to pay attention to what's important to the client and how do I provide the client what they want on terms that they want to hear with frequency that they want to hear. When you start paying attention to them, lots of positive things start to happen. RBC Wealth Management looked at their firm, and they rolled out a program that would focus on customer experience for their wealth managers. They saw a 56% increase in revenue when they started focusing on customer experience, when they started asking questions of the customer about, what do you want to talk about? How often do you want to talk? How do you want to meet? What's important to you about money? When they started asking those kinds of questions, they saw a radical increase. And, I know you're going to get different answers from each client, and
would expect to, sure.
100%. And so then the question is, well, how do I deliver the experience, if it's going to be different for each client? And the answer is super simple. That's why we have CRMs today. That's why we have technology. Your job is to help understand the client and then help get that information into a form that our technologies can use to help you be in a position to succeed with those clients. So I've been rambling a lot. What do you think?
No, not rambling at all. Just bringing up a question. When people do come in and they're asked, what brings you here today? What is the answer? What is I know they'll all be different, but what's the most common answer?
So that depends a little bit on wealth. Okay. So for instance, super high net worth folks, literally in Q2, were asked that question, and their answer was, I want to make sure that my kids are prepared for life after I'm gone. They're high net worth, so there's going to be substantial wealth that'll pass on to them. They want to be concerned about that. Now, as you scale that down, you get down to, maybe the 250 net worth kind of range, right? And that's not small. That's still significant, but the priorities are a little bit different. Their concerns were, how am I going to manage healthcare? I really don't want to be a burden on my kids. Okay. And, how am I going to keep my independence? What am I going to need to manage that healthcare situation? When you get into that middle bracket, between the 10 million up and between the 250 and below, so you get into that mass affluent, their concern is, how do I make sure that my income's going to last as long as I need it to last? And how do I make sure that my affairs are in order so that the maximum amount is going to my kids and grandkids, more grandkids than kids. But how do I arrange my affairs to do that? So you can see it's kind of a little bit over the board, depending on the clients you're talking to. So does that help?
It does. It's very interesting. It does make some sense though when you're talking about the different levels of income. I can see that 250, as you say, you've got a lot to worry about, especially with the costs are going. But when they come in to see the advisor, what is the first line of contact for a new client coming in?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, is it the receptionist? Does the advisor meet them right away? Is there an immediate inclusion?
So that's a really good question, and it's really kind of all over the board. I think that best practice right now, if you look at firms that are experiencing hypergrowth, so obviously they're having success attracting and maintaining clients. So if you look at firms that are in hypergrowth, what they put in place are people, processes, and technology. We talk about this all the time. Okay, so they've got someone who's doing that business development role. Okay, whose job it is to make sure that when someone fills out the form on the website saying, I'm concerned about how long my money will last, that someone is responding to that, and someone is capturing that information and kicking off, an automation that's going to, feed them information and nurture them along and get them to the point where they book a meeting. And, when they come in for the meeting, of course, they should feel welcomed. And, we like to focus on making sure they've got their beverage of choice there, but really that's so far down the scale on priorities for the people coming through the front door. If you're not going to ask the what brings you here today question, giving them the choice of Diet Dr. Pepper or Diet Coke, isn't going to solve their problem. But we tend to focus a lot more on those situations. Certainly, you want your clients to feel appreciated. Absolutely. But if you're talking about, where majoring in the minors, I think we tend to focus a lot more on majoring in the minors. We tend to focus more on, let's make sure they get birthday cards. Let's make sure they get a cake from Granny's Cakes, that sort of thing. When in fact, if we just spend a little bit more time understanding what's important to them, helping them understand how they can be in control of their financial situation, that would take them so much further down the path. So that's really what the experience is about. It's really about getting personal.
Exactly.
I mean, the advisor has to be a little bit vulnerable. I mean, because no one's going to get personal and share what matters to them if they don't feel like you have empathy. Yeah, that you have empathy and you're being transparent.
Yeah.
So, I totally get why this is an issue for a lot of financial advisors. But at the end of the day, that's what the experience is about. Did this mean something to me? And how do you build that at scale? So there's technology out there. We'll be rolling out a partnership at the beginning of the year with a group that has a technology platform that makes connections in the moments that matter, is the way they frame it. And so, there are age milestones, there are life, milestones where you can say, probably these things are going to be on their radar and you can start to reach out to them and touch them. Folks that are going to be attending the InsureMark Founders Club experience in Nashville in January are going to be treated to some coaching from Brittany Hodak. She was on one of our earlier podcasts. She's the author of Creating Superfans. She had a business that was in the superfan building space that actually was on Shark Tank and got the record for the largest offer from the sharks, for that they absolutely wanted to buy it. So she's an extremely successful business person, but her book is called Creating Superfans. And so she says that she created this super model, SUPER. The S stands for starts with your story. Okay, so what is your story, Mr. Advisor? What is your origin story, and what is relevant in your background? Why are you doing what you're doing?
So this is your why story. I think most people would refer to it as that. Okay, got it.
Starts with your story. The U is for understanding their story. Mm-hmm. And so if you're not asking them where they're coming from and what they're all about, then you're missing a big deal. And really, it's then a Venn diagram. Where's the overlap between my story and your story? And really, that's where the magic happens. So they're going to be treated to that. So there are lots of different resources we have at InsureMark that'll help with this customer experience thing. But, if you're listening and you're not affiliated with InsureMark, that's fine. Listen to the podcast, read the book. We'll be happy to play in public. Play in traffic is what I tell advisors to do. Share what you know with the public. So what do you think?
I think that's fantastic, Jack. I do. I think the customer experience is it's the prime reason people come in and stay. And if you don't get it, you're not going to see them again.
I agree. There's another aspect to this, and it comes back to the growth subject. Everybody, since the beginning of the year, it seems like we're a lot more focused on what does it take to grow? What are the things we're doing to grow? We've talked in our earlier podcasts about what do you do in the lead to turn leads into prospects, turn prospects into meetings, turn meetings into clients, and clients into evangelists, right? But really, client experience is a unique competitive advantage. If you have a customer experience where your clients are saying, at the PTA meeting, on the soccer field, at the Christmas party, wow, you won't believe what my financial advisor did for me. That is hugely powerful. Okay. And if you're not doing that, you're really missing a huge opportunity from a growth perspective. We know most advisors aren't achieving that level of success with their customer experience. And one way to tell that is ask a simple question. So how many of your clients gave you a referral this year? And for most advisors, the number is pretty small. And so what we know from that indicator is the level of engagement that client has with the financial advisor and the level of understanding of the value that financial advisor provides for them. If it's clear what the value is, it's easy for the client to say, wow, you won't believe what my financial advisor did for our family. It's easy to start to become more magnetic and to provide referrals. So it's a good indicator. It's a good indicator.
Which suggests to me that the advisor has to make talking about money comfortable.
100%.
Yeah, because you're not going to go out and talk to your friends. Oh, so-and-so my financial advisor did this and this, because you don't want to talk about your money.
Yeah, I mean, it's there. I mean, it comes. I'm a CFP. I've been an RIA, for 3 decades, and so if we go to a party or a social gathering, inevitably someone comes over and wants to talk finance, right? I get that, but for other people, the subject of money, what's happening in the markets, what's happening in the housing market, what's happening in the bond market, savings, student debt, market volatility, all those kinds of things, that's common conversation. Okay. They don't necessarily get to the level of saying, okay, so, how big is your IRA, or what's your social security look like? But by the same token, the subject comes up. And so, when the client is in a mindset, a very positive mindset from the experience, they're more likely to want to share that with others. So
that's it. And share with the advisor even more.
100%.
All right.
100%. Well, we've covered a lot in a pretty short period of time. We always do. Yeah. So more questions you might have? I
can't think of anything offhand that we haven't discussed. I think it's making people feel comfortable. It's getting to know them. That Venn diagram comparison was perfect. You have to overlap with them to make yourselves both comfortable. And that way there's that link, there's that tie, there's that, I want to work with you.
All right. Well, then until next time, if you're interested in more information on what's happening with customer experience, like I said, check out our earlier podcast with Brittany. It's fantastic. Check out her book. Jump on with an advisor development consultant at InsureMark. They'd be happy to share with you the automation tools that they make available to their clients to help them stay in touch with clients and build those bridges. So until next time, this is Jack Martin with InsureMark, signing off for the Breakthrough Advisor podcast. Thanks and have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Breakthrough Advisor podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of InsureMark. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only.